The silent approach. The border station floated in the empty darkness between star systems, a magnificent structure of crystalline towers and gleaming metal that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Inside the command center, dozens of Carvan officers worked at their stations with the calm efficiency of a species that had ruled the outer spiral for 5,000 years. Their technology was the envy of 100 worlds. Their military had never known defeat. Their confidence was absolute. Commander Zelrith stood at the center of the operations floor, his tall form casting long shadows under the bright lights. His silver skin reflected the glow of countless display screens that surrounded him. He had commanded this station for 12 cycles, and in all that time, nothing interesting had ever happened. The outer spiral was peaceful. The neighboring species knew their place. Trade flowed smoothly. Life was predictable and safe. That changed at the beginning of the night shift when junior analyst Corvin noticed something on the long-range sensors. He was young for his position, barely 3 cycles out of the academy, and he still believed that every anomaly might be important. Most of the senior staff had learned to ignore the small things. Space was full of debris and strange readings that meant nothing. Corvin studied his screen for several minutes before calling out across the operations floor. Commander Zelrith, I have detected vessels approaching from the Theta sector. The reading shows 42 distinct signatures. Zelrith barely looked up from the tactical report he was reviewing. Classification and distance? Unknown classification, sir. Distance is approximately 6 light hours in closing. They are moving at sublight speeds using what appears to be fusion-based propulsion. A few officers nearby chuckled at that. Fusion propulsion was ancient technology. The Carvan had abandoned it 3,000 years ago in favor of quantum displacement drives that could fold space itself. Any species still using fusion was clearly primitive and not worth serious attention. Zelrith walked over to Corvin's station and glanced at the data. The young analyst had pulled up detailed scans showing the approaching vessels. They were ungainly things, built like metal fortresses with thick armor plating and no elegant design whatsoever. They looked like someone had taken shipping containers and welded engines onto them. Senior Officer Mathera joined them, her 4 eyes scanning the information quickly. She had seen many alien species during her long career, but these vessels were particularly crude. Their hulls are remarkably thick, she observed. Almost as if they expect to be shot at constantly. Zelrith smiled at that. Perhaps where they come from, everyone is as primitive as they are. Send the standard warning. Tell them they have entered Carvan territorial space and must submit to inspection or turn back immediately. Corvin sent the message on all standard frequencies. The response came back within minutes, but it was not what anyone expected. Instead of words, it was pure data. A cascading stream of encrypted information that flooded across every channel simultaneously. The communication system struggled to process it all. What is this? Zelrith demanded. Corvin worked frantically at his console. It appears to be some kind of multi-layered transmission, sir. I cannot break the encryption. Our systems are having difficulty even categorizing it. Mathera leaned closer. Are they attacking us with information? That would be a new approach. No, ma'am, I do not think so. The signal is not causing damage. It is just very complex. More complex than anything I have ever seen. Zelrith frowned. This was unusual but not alarming. The Carvan encryption technology was the best in the known galaxy. If these primitives wanted to hide their messages, that was their choice. It did not change the fact that 42 aging vessels were no match for a Carvan border station equipped with weapons that could vaporize planets. He opened a channel to the station's military commander. Captain Vrenix, we have unknown vessels refusing to comply with our warnings. Please prepare a demonstration of force. Nothing destructive, just enough to encourage cooperation. Captain Vrenix's voice came back immediately, confident and casual. Understood, Commander. We will launch 6 interceptor craft. That should be sufficient to make them reconsider their approach. The interceptors launched smoothly from the station's lower bays. They were beautiful vessels, sleek and fast. Each one powered by quantum cores and armed with particle weapons that could slice through any known armor. The pilots were the best the Carvan military had to offer. This would be a simple escort mission, the kind they had done hundreds of times before. But as the interceptors approached the human fleet, something strange began to happen. Corvin was the first to notice. Commander, I am losing telemetry from Interceptor 3. The signal just dropped completely. Zelrith turned back to the sensor displays. Check the communication array. Perhaps there is interference from their encrypted broadcast. Before Corvin could respond, another interceptor went silent. Then a third. Within 2 minutes, all 6 interceptors had stopped transmitting. They were still visible on visual sensors, still moving through space, but they were not responding to any commands. It was as if someone had reached out and switched them off. The operations floor grew quiet. Officers stopped their routine tasks and gathered around the main displays. This was not supposed to happen. Carven technology did not simply fail. Their systems were built with redundancies upon redundancies. A single vessel might experience problems, but 6 at once? Impossible. Mithera spoke quietly, her voice tense. Commander, we should recall all remaining craft and raise defensive shields. Zelrith nodded slowly. He did not want to appear concerned in front of his crew, but something was very wrong. Do it. And increase sensor focus on those unknown vessels. I want to know what they are doing. The sensor readings came back strange. The human ships had not fired any weapons. They had not launched any projectiles or energy beams. They were simply sitting in space continuing their encrypted broadcast. Yet somehow, 6 Carven interceptors had been disabled without a single shot. Corvin pulled up new data, his hands shaking slightly. Sir, I'm detecting unusual electromagnetic activity from the unknown fleet. It is highly focused and directed specifically at our interceptors. The pattern suggests some form of electronic warfare, but unlike anything in our databases. Electronic warfare against Carven systems? Zelrith shook his head. Our quantum encryption makes that impossible. No external signal can penetrate our networks. They are mathematically unbreakable. I understand, sir, but the interceptors are disabled. Something penetrated their systems. Before Zelrith could respond, the lights in the command center flickered. It was brief, just a fraction of a second, but everyone noticed. Carven stations did not experience power fluctuations. The energy systems were perfectly balanced and maintained by artificial intelligence that monitored every circuit and power relay. Then it happened again. The lights flickered twice in quick succession. Display screens went dark for a moment before coming back online. And in that moment of darkness, Zelrith felt something he had not experienced in his entire career. Real fear. Mithera was already moving toward the engineering station. Get me a full diagnostic of all primary systems immediately. I want to know what just happened. The engineering officer, a veteran named Kelrax, worked quickly through his controls. Ma'am, I am showing cascade failures in the secondary power grid. The AI is attempting to compensate, but it is experiencing processing delays. Processing delays? Our AI operates on quantum cores. It does not have delays. I know, ma'am, but look at the readings. Response times are increasing by microseconds with each cycle. Something is interfering with the quantum calculations themselves. Across the operations floor, other problems began emerging. Navigation systems reported incorrect stellar positions. Communication arrays could not maintain stable connections with nearby stations. Weapon systems showed ready status one moment and offline status the next. It was as if the entire station was slowly forgetting how to function. Zelrith opened an emergency channel to Carven Central Command. This is Border Station Tyvex requesting immediate assistance. We are experiencing system-wide failures of unknown origin. Unknown vessels in our sector may be responsible. He waited for the response. Central Command always answered within seconds. Their quantum communication network was instantaneous across any distance. 10 seconds passed. Then 20. Then a full minute. The silence was deafening. Commander, Corvin called out, his voice breaking slightly. I cannot reach Central Command. The quantum link is not responding. Try conventional electromagnetic transmission. Corvin worked his console, but his movements were becoming frantic. Sir, conventional systems are also failing. I cannot send any messages beyond local range. Zelrith looked at the main display showing the 42 human vessels. They had not moved. They had not attacked. They were simply broadcasting their encrypted signal, and somehow, impossibly, the entire Carven border station was falling apart around them. The artificial intelligence that ran most of the station's systems suddenly spoke through the intercom. Its voice, usually calm and measured, sounded distorted and uncertain. Warning: critical systems failure. Unknown intrusion detected in primary networks. Attempting to isolate and contain. Unable to identify intrusion vector. Unable to restore normal operations. Requesting manual intervention. Manual intervention. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The Carven had not operated their systems manually in generations. Everything was automated, controlled by AI that made decisions faster and better than any biological mind could manage. Without the AI, they would have to run the station like their ancestors had 5,000 years ago, using only their own minds and hands. Mithara turned to Zelrith, her face showing the horror they all felt. "Commander, we need to evacuate. If the AI fails completely, life support will follow. We have maybe an hour before this station becomes uninhabitable." Zelrith wanted to argue to find another solution, but he knew she was right. All around them, the magnificent technology they had always trusted was dying, and the humans, the primitive species with their ugly ships and ancient fusion drives, had done it without firing a single weapon. He took a deep breath and gave the order he never thought he would have to give. "Begin emergency evacuation procedures. All non-essential personnel to the escape craft immediately. Send a message to those unknown vessels on any frequency that still works. Tell them we surrender." Corvin's voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, what do we tell them we are surrendering to? They have not made any demands." Zelrith stared at the human fleet on the screen. "That is what frightens me most. They have not told us what they want. They have simply shown us what they can do. And now we wait to see what comes next." The station's lights flickered again, and this time some of them did not come back on. In the growing darkness, the Carven officers began to understand a terrible truth. All their advanced technology, all their quantum computers and artificial intelligence and mathematical certainty, meant nothing if someone knew how to make it stop working, and the humans, it seemed, knew exactly how to do that. Outside, the 42 human vessels continued their silent broadcast, patient and unstoppable, while the most advanced border station in the outer spiral slowly went dark around them. The price of arrogance. The blackout spread like a disease through the Carven Empire. Within 6 hours of border station Tyvex going dark, 17 other stations reported system failures. Within 12 hours, 3 colony worlds lost their orbital defense platforms. Within a full day, the capital city of Carven Prime experienced its first power outage in recorded history. Chancellor Drevik stood in the emergency command bunker, deep beneath the planetary government complex. The bunker had been built thousands of years ago during the Age of Consolidation, when the Carven were still conquering neighboring systems. It had not been used in living memory because there had been no need. The Carven Empire did not face emergencies. They caused them for others. But now the Chancellor watched as holographic displays showed the cascading failures across their civilization. Transportation networks frozen, banking systems offline, medical facilities operating on backup power, communication between worlds reduced to slow electromagnetic signals that took hours or days to reach their destinations. Everything that made the Carven Empire great was falling apart. High Admiral Torvex entered the bunker with 3 senior officers trailing behind him. His uniform was disheveled and his silver skin had taken on a pale, stressed coloration. "Chancellor, we have established contact with the human fleet. They are willing to communicate." "About time," Drevik responded sharply. "What do they want? Territory? Resources? Technology?" Torvex activated a portable display unit, one of the few pieces of equipment still functioning reliably. "They want us to listen. They sent us this recorded message. It is translated from their language." He pressed a control and a human voice filled the bunker. The translation software gave it a mechanical quality, but the emotion behind the words was clear. "This is Ambassador Chen Wei of the Terran Diplomatic Corps, speaking on behalf of humanity. For 52 years, we have attempted to establish formal relations with the Carven Empire. We sent 14 diplomatic missions to your border stations. We transmitted 237 requests for audience through your official channels. We provided detailed proposals for mutual recognition, territorial agreements, and collaborative research opportunities. Every single attempt was ignored, dismissed, or relegated to automated systems that never forwarded our messages to actual decision-makers." The message continued. "We are not a primitive species stumbling through space. We are the survivors of a hostile homeworld that taught us to build technology that works when everything else fails. We developed our civilization in the shadow of electromagnetic storms that would destroy your quantum computers in seconds. We learned to thrive in chaos while you learned to depend on perfection. Your arrogance made you blind to the simple fact that different does not mean inferior." There was a pause in the recording, and when the voice resumed, it was harder and colder. "You are currently experiencing a demonstration of human electronic warfare capabilities. We have not destroyed anything. We have not killed anyone directly. We have simply shown you what happens when your perfect systems stop being perfect. Every failure you are experiencing can be reversed. Every system can be restored. But first, you will negotiate with us as equals. You will grant us formal diplomatic recognition. You will respect our territorial boundaries, and you will never again dismiss another species because you think your technology makes you superior. The recording ended. The bunker was silent except for the hum of backup generators. Drevik felt something unfamiliar churning in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as shame. High Admiral Torvek spoke quietly. Chancellor, our intelligence division has been researching human history and biology. You need to see what they discovered. He brought up new data on the display. This is the human homeworld, the planet they call Earth. Drevik stared at the planetary analysis. The radiation levels alone should have prevented complex life from developing. The tectonic activity was extreme. The weather patterns were violent and unpredictable. It was the kind of world that the Carven would classify as uninhabitable and move on without a second thought. Torvex continued. Humans evolved in an environment that actively tried to kill them. Their sun bombards their planet with radiation. Their atmosphere generates electrical storms that release more energy than some of our weapons. Their geology shifts and breaks, causing earthquakes that destroy cities. They built their entire civilization while dealing with disasters that would cripple our society. Another officer stepped forward. This was Science Director Ilara, a specialist in xenobiology. Chancellor, there is more. Humans are remarkably fragile biologically. They require a narrow temperature range to survive. They need constant nutrition and water. They are vulnerable to thousands of diseases and toxins. By all logical analysis, they should have gone extinct before developing tool use. Then how did they survive? Drevik asked. Ilara brought up genetic and historical data. They survived through adaptability and stubborn determination. When their environment became hostile, they did not wait for evolution to save them. They created technology to protect themselves. When that technology failed in their harsh conditions, they built better technology. They have been refining their survival tools for hundreds of thousands of years. What we dismissed as primitive is actually the result of endless testing in the worst possible conditions. Torvex added more information to the display. Look at their ship design, Chancellor. Thick armor because they expect to be damaged. Isolated systems because they cannot trust everything to work together. Simple communication methods because complex networks fail under stress. They built their vessels like fortresses because in their experience, everything eventually breaks and you need to keep fighting anyway. Drevik studied the data and understanding slowly dawned. We built our civilization in calm, stable star systems. We had the luxury of perfecting our technology in peaceful conditions. Our quantum computers work flawlessly because they operate in controlled environments. Our AI networks function perfectly because we never expected anyone to attack the network itself. Exactly, Ilara confirmed. We optimized for efficiency and elegance. They optimized for survival and resilience. In a direct contest of advanced technology versus hardened technology, we assumed advanced would win. We were wrong. A junior officer entered the bunker carrying a message tablet. She looked exhausted and frightened. Chancellor, we are receiving reports from across the Empire. Civil unrest is beginning in 17 cities. People are panicking because the systems they depend on are not working. Food distribution is disrupted. Transportation is failing. The population does not know how to function without AI assistance. Drevik closed his eyes. How many casualties? Medical estimates are still coming in, but preliminary numbers suggest at least 4,000 deaths from system failures. Traffic accidents, medical equipment malfunctions, building climate control failures. The number is rising every hour. 4,000 dead, not from weapons or warfare, but from the simple fact that the Carven had forgotten how to live without their technology. They had become so dependent on their perfect systems that when those systems stopped working, they could not adapt. High Admiral Torvik spoke carefully. Chancellor, we need to accept the human terms. We have no choice. Our military cannot function without our networks. Our economy is collapsing. Our people are suffering. If we continue to resist, the death toll will climb into the millions. Drevik wanted to argue. He wanted to find another solution that did not involve bowing to the demands of a species they had ignored for half a century. But he was a leader, and leaders had to make hard choices. Very well. Arrange a meeting with this Ambassador Chen Wei. We will negotiate. The meeting took place aboard a neutral station that the humans had helped restore to partial functionality. It was a gesture of good faith, showing that they truly could reverse the damage they had caused. Drevik arrived with a small delegation, traveling in a ship that barely functioned because most of its systems were still compromised. Ambassador Chen Wei was waiting in the conference room. She was a small human with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that held both intelligence and weariness. She looked exactly like someone who had spent 50 years trying to be heard, and finally had to resort to extreme measures to get attention. "Chancellor Drevik," she said formally as he entered. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Drevik took his seat across from her. "You left us little choice, Ambassador. Your demonstration was quite effective." Chen Wei did not smile. "I take no joy in what has happened, Chancellor. We did not want to hurt anyone. We wanted to talk. But when talking fails for 5 decades, other options must be considered. Why did you not simply attack us militarily?" Drevik asked. "You clearly have capabilities we did not anticipate. You could have caused far more damage." "Because we are not conquerors," Chen Wei replied. "We are explorers and diplomats. We believe in cooperation and mutual benefit. But we also believe in being respected. You treated us like primitive children who were not worth your time. That had to change." She pulled up a holographic display between them. "These are our terms. First, formal diplomatic recognition with the establishment of embassies and regular communication. Second, mutual respect for territorial boundaries with a neutral zone between our spaces. Third, an agreement to never dismiss or ignore diplomatic attempts from any species, regardless of their apparent technological level. Fourth, reparations to be paid by both sides. You will compensate for the suffering caused by decades of dismissal. We will compensate for the suffering caused by our demonstration." Drevik studied the terms. They were harsh but fair. "What happens if we refuse?" Chen Wei's expression hardened. "Then we leave your systems offline and depart. You will eventually restore everything on your own. But it will take years. Your empire will collapse into chaos. Millions will die. Neighboring species will see your weakness and some may attack. The Carvan Empire as you know it will cease to exist. And if we agree, then we restore your systems immediately. We establish diplomatic relations. We share certain technologies that will help you harden your networks against similar attacks in the future. We become partners instead of enemies." "The choice seems obvious, Ambassador." "It does now," Chen Wei agreed. "But it was not obvious 50 years ago when we first asked to talk. That is the lesson here, Chancellor. Technology is not wisdom. Advancement is not superiority. And silence is not always golden. Sometimes the species you ignore today becomes the one that teaches you humility tomorrow." Drevik felt that shame again, deeper this time. "You are right, Ambassador. We were arrogant. We believed our technology made us better than others. We forgot that every species has something valuable to offer. I apologize on behalf of the Carvan Empire. It is inadequate, but it is sincere." Chen Wei studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Apology accepted, Chancellor. Now let us work together to fix what has been broken. Not just your systems, but the relationship between our peoples." The restoration took 3 days. Human technicians worked alongside Carvan engineers, teaching them how the electronic warfare attack had functioned and how to defend against it in the future. It was humbling for the Carvan to learn from the species they had dismissed, but it was also educational. The humans knew things about system resilience and redundancy that the Carvan had never considered. On Carvan Prime, power returned to the cities. Transportation networks came back online. Medical facilities resumed normal operations. The AI systems rebooted with new security protocols that the humans had helped design. Life slowly returned to normal, but it was a different normal. The Carvan had learned that normal could be taken away in an instant. Chancellor Drevik addressed the Empire from the capital. His speech was broadcast on every functioning channel, reaching billions of citizens across dozens of worlds. "People of the Carvan Empire, we have experienced a crisis unlike any in our history. Our technology failed us, our systems collapsed, and we suffered because of it. But we have also learned a valuable lesson. We learned that depending too much on any one thing makes us vulnerable. We learned that dismissing others because they seem different or primitive is foolish and dangerous. And we learned that true strength comes not from having the best technology, but from knowing how to survive when technology fails." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today we have established formal diplomatic relations with humanity. They are our partners now, and they will help us become stronger and more resilient. But they are also a reminder that we must never again let arrogance blind us to the value of others. Every species has something to teach us. Every voice deserves to be heard. This is the new path for the Carvan Empire. The response was mixed. Some praised the Chancellor's wisdom. Others called him weak for surrendering to human demands. But as time passed and the full details of the crisis became public, most Carvan came to understand what had happened. They had been taught a hard lesson by a species they had underestimated, and the lesson had probably saved them from an even worse fate. Ambassador Chen Wei returned to the human fleet with the signed treaties and formal recognition documents. Her 50-year mission was finally complete. As her shuttle approached the flagship, she looked back at Corvin Prime glowing in the distance. It was a beautiful world, and now it would be a friend instead of an obstacle. Her second officer met her at the airlock. Ambassador, was it worth it? All those years of trying, all the frustration, all the measures we had to take at the end? Chen Wei smiled tiredly. Yes, Commander, it was worth it. Because now when the next species encounters the Carvan Empire, they will be heard, they will be respected. We did not do this just for ourselves. We did it for everyone who comes after us. The human fleet departed Carvan space 3 days later. They left behind diplomatic staff, technical advisors, and a permanent reminder that sometimes the most important battles are not won with weapons, but with patience, determination, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to make your voice heard. The galaxy had learned something new. Humanity was not just another species wandering through space. They were survivors, diplomats, and when necessary, teachers of very hard lessons. And anyone who forgot that lesson would face the same darkness that had consumed the Carvan Empire. If only for a moment, but long enough to change everything.